Okay, here we go, folks. We're live. I'm at the Greatness Factory. Chase Gruning with me today for another edition of Coach to Coach. Chase, how you doing today?
Great. We're in the heart of our quarter, which is our biggest revenue season. So it's moving and grooving over here.
I like that. I like that. Well, I want to go back in time a little bit because when I was a young entrepreneur, around 31 years old, that's when I retired from coaching. And I walked in one day and I go, man, I think I'm supposed to be playing a bigger game. And this has been a great season of my life. I was a little nervous and apprehensive because that's all I had ever done. But I left athletic coaching and I went into the business world. Okay. Up until that point, I'd never thought about finances. I'd never thought about money. I'd really never thought about marketing, although I was a pretty good marketer in my basketball program. And I was pretty good at sales, but I didn't really think of it that way. Right. And I start this business and I immediately have a realization I need to grow my financial IQ. So I go and I buy a couple books at the bookstore. I bought Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep, read that one. Staple.
I bought Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yep.
And I bought How to Grow Your Financial IQ, all by Kiyosaki. Now, little did I know that it was really Sharon Lechter who wrote all three of those books, who many years later I would have, be on tour with, go to her house and have dinners with her. She's incredibly, incredibly smart. But the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad got me thinking about something. And because there was a contrast. And the contrast was, if you remember the subtitle, it was what the rich teach their kids that the poor and middle class never do. And I thought, damn, that's a great subtitle. Right? Now, what does that have to do with good coach, with what we're talking about today? 10 or 15 years ago, I used to do a podcast called Good Coach, Bad Coach. What the great coaches do that the bad coaches never figure out. Okay. And so that's the topic of what we're talking about today, because you're a coach, I'm a coach, you were a football coach, I was a basketball coach. We both had a lot of success in the business world. I was even thinking the other day about Art Williams, who started Primerica, right? Ended up selling that company for almost $1 billion to Transamerica. He was a high school football coach.
Yeah.
Like just a fiery football coach, had a lot of grit, a lot of pride, a lot of prey drive in him. But let's talk today about the characteristics of good coaches and bad coaches. Okay. So I want you to go back in a time in your life when you had a really good coach. Okay. And I want you to think about what made that coach a really, really good coach. And then I want to contrast that with maybe a coach you had that was a bad coach. And I actually had a bad high school coach that I learned something very valuable from. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So go back and tell me about one of the great coaches that you had.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of several, but I go back to my high school coach, a mentor. I think of a lot of coaches that changed my life. You're one of them. Coach Coons won a state championship at the high school level, has one of the most historic programs in Illinois high school football history and some of the most wins ever in Illinois high school football history. And I was a part of his inaugural team. Yep. And I think any great coach, any great leader, if we lump those two together, rejects the status quo, rejects normality, and is the first to take a stand at resetting a culture and resetting expectations and saying enough is enough, really. I think that's what great coaches do, is they take something, whether it's a norm or a concept, and they completely throw it out the window and reform it and bring out a whole new culture and identity to something.
Yeah. See, that's good. I was thinking while you were talking about that, I was thinking about who are some of the great coaches, and I agree with you totally. A great coach, and in the business world, we really help leaders become coaches.
Yep.
Think like coaches, develop talent like coaches, create standards like coaches, create accountability like coaches. Like, in my opinion, right? In my opinion, that's really one of the things we do. Is we raise the standards, we don't lower them. We create identity, we create accountability, and we create language. Right? That's really what we do. Okay. So some of the great coaches I had, confirmed and validated me as a person. They saw something in me. They developed a leadership skill in me. They put me in a position to use my talents and skills. It's like they helped me build my confidence. Okay. Now let's contrast that with a bad coach. Okay. Now you've probably had some bad coaches in your life. What made them a bad coach?
Man, I was on several staffs, and I'll never forget one of them. It's just they almost bring it back to status quo. The details and the culture deteriorates. The way they treat people. That's the main thing I noticed about bad coaches is the way they treat people.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a cancer to the team, to the business, to the environment. And it all starts with the leadership. I believe at my core, we're either teaching it or we're letting it happen. There's no in between.
Yeah, we encourage what we allow. We allow people to be lazy, they'll be lazy. We allow people to whine, they'll whine. We allow, like I was in a meeting earlier today and it was kind of headed in the wrong direction, Chase. And here's what I said. If this is how this meeting's going to be, then the meeting's over. Like if this is the direction the meeting's going to take, it's not productive. A good meeting, action happens from a good meeting, right? So if this is the direction that we're going, then let's just end the meeting right now because I'm in a good frame here. I'm in a good state. I'm in a good mindset, right? I'm here to win. I'm not here to talk about losing. So when you think about it, I actually softened some, Chase, when I got into the business world because the adults couldn't take the intensity that I brought to the kids. The kids were right. The kids were tougher than the adults are. So I think about a coach that I had in high school who played at the University of Tennessee. He was like 6'7". He wasn't a bad dude, but he come into our little town and our little culture and he worked us to death, which I think we needed. And he was not flexible in his thoughts. So he had a lot. So you say, what did you learn from him? I didn't like his coaching style. I didn't like the way he treated people. I didn't like any of that. But guess what he did have? He had a strong backbone. And I admired the fact that he stood for something. It ultimately got him fired because he couldn't win any games. And then a new coach came in and he was a defensive guy, not an offensive guy. Defense. And he taught the principles of defense. And so I think about this, and I want to bring a point here, and I want you to add to this. So in my senior year of high school, I'm a point guard. I'm in the last game of my career, and man, I'm having a terrible game. I mean, I'm turning the ball over. There's 3,000 or 4,000 people there. I'm in my head. And when I went over to the bench, the coach kept yelling, "Bert, what's wrong with you? Bert, you're going to lose this game, Bert." Right? And man, that didn't help me. In retrospect, what I needed the coach to say, which I learned from many years later, is I needed him to say, "Look, man, you're my guy. Hey, shake it off. Focus on the next play." Right? But he didn't. He just kept banging on the fact that I was making these mistakes, and I was young and immature, and it just made it worse. I spiraled. What I needed a coach to do was redirect me. Hey, let's get out of negative town. You've been my guy. You're my point guard. You're my leader. I believe in you. Now, what do you think about that, Chase? About how coaches can redirect energy like that versus make it worse?
Yeah, I mean, I say it all the time. It's not everybody's coached the same way. And I remember a lot of different players I had over the year, and I had to coach them differently. Same thing happens on our business team right now. I mean, just this past week, I can think of a very specific individual that does not respond the same way that others do. We have a very competitive, a lot of former D1 athletes on our team. A lot of them respond in that coaching way. They need to be pushed and pushed and pushed. I've got a couple other people on my team that when you push, they retract.
Yep.
And you've got to be able to understand how people respond and develop. I think the biggest gap in any business is leadership and development.
Yeah.
I mean, developing people, I think, is the difference between a $10 million company and a $100 million company or a $1 billion company. Is you've got to be able to develop and grow within your company, because retention and bringing on high-level people is expensive. And I think that ties all back to coaching. And I think that's what we're doing at the end of the day. We're taking those skill sets we built with championship sports teams and bringing them to the business world.
I think because I've had people work with me and for me that go, I don't really like his leadership style. And then I have people work with me and go, man, this is the greatest place in the world to work.
Right.
And it's like finding the right fit for the coach and the player is so critical to this, because it doesn't make it like some people need to be more nurtured. I, by nature, am not a nurturer. I am a person that doesn't throw around a lot of compliments. You really got to do something big to get a compliment from me, because to me, that's what you're getting paid to do, is show up and be great. And so, but if you go beyond, I'm like, hey, that's a great job, man. I really noticed how you did this. And I reward people with opportunity. So if somebody does a good job for me, I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to give you a bigger opportunity here. Kind of like the parable of the talents in the Bible. It's like, hey, you did a great job with the little. I'm going to expand your territory. I'm also going to give you a chance to make more money. I'm also going to give you some leads. I'm also going to do this. So my reward system is more like, hey, your territory is expanding. Like in the prayer of Jabez, it's like I'm praying for expanded territory, and I'm getting expanded territory. So when you think about it, to me, as I get older, it's like that fit between the coach and the player, and that symbiotic relationship between those two people. You with me?
Oh yeah.
And I've always considered myself a pretty good player, like meaning when I yield to authority, if somebody who's really done something, I'm like, hey man, I'm humble, I'm teachable, I'm coachable. Tell me what to do and I'll try to do it. Right? I'm not going to take advice from somebody who hasn't done it before or who hasn't produced at a high level. But when you think good coach versus bad coach, I believe there's a lot more bad coaches in the world than good coaches. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So when I was a high school coach, coaches weren't reading books. They go to some coaching clinics. They weren't listening to webinars. They weren't paying for any training. They didn't really spend a lot of time in personal development. They developed a lot of bad habits, out of shape, let themselves go. But they're telling their kids that they need to be in great shape. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm sitting there like, hey man, let's practice what we preach here. Let's show up. Let's grow up and we deliver. Like let's be somebody. Let's show these kids how to be somebody. So I really do think if we could sum it up in 4 words, it's identity, standards, language, accountability. Now, how does that translate to running an insurance business?
Yeah, I mean, we teach, train, consult agency owners across the country every day. And when we talk about being a championship producer and then elevating to building a championship team, it's a totally different skill set, right?
Yep.
I mean, as a player, you can be a great player. You're not always going to translate to being a great coach. But when we talk about building an incredible insurance agency, a dynasty, as we call it, the foundation is all culture, leadership, non-negotiables. When we talk about the footers, if we're building a house, it's all about your non-negotiables and all about your culture. And that's what I urge every company we work with is, what do you stand for? When somebody comes and works for you, what do they expect to get from you and your team and your company? And why would I want to work with you for 20, 30 years? And that all comes down to culture, accountability, and all those things that build a championship level team, in my opinion. All the things we just talked about that make a great coach, they've got to be able to portray that to anybody coming into their business.
So when you think about it, it's like starts with your beliefs. We believe in speed. We believe in doing things first class. We believe in getting back quick. We believe in decision making. We believe, like when you get, so I always like to say the explanation of value almost replaces vision, mission, and goals. Because like once you're very clear in what you believe, then it's easy to make decisions. Like, we believe this, we don't believe that. We do this, we don't do that. Right? Like, so to me, if I went in any business here in downtown Nashville, I go across the street over here to a place called Puckett's, and I finally just quit eating there, Chase. Because it's like they can't cook food. They can't make any good food. And I've had everything you can have. I'm like, surely they can't mess the salad up. They can mess the salad. Then they can't mess, I was like, surely they can't mess a hamburger up. And they can mess a hamburger. It's like who is in charge of making sure the food's good? Like you go to restaurants and the food, I'm like, who's like that? Like who's in charge of making sure, like what's the standard here? Are we just dragging anybody off the street to put them in the kitchen? Is it somebody who's gone to cooking school? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know how to cook a hamburger? Do they know how to cook make a salad? Like it's like, and every single time I leave there and I'm like, gosh, I'm so disappointed. Like, how did they screw that up? You know what I'm saying? But
right.
People keep going there. Now, they may not go. This is a very important business lesson. They may not ever go back, right? They may go there because the location. It's on the corner of Church Street. It looks like country food, whatever. But they may not ever go back again if it's not any good. Okay. So I think when you're thinking about culture, it's like if you're running a restaurant, you want it to be the best restaurant you can. If you're running an insurance company, let's set some standards and have the best thing we can. If we're running a coaching business, let's run a good coaching business. Like, you see where I'm going? It's like there's standards here. And that's why I always say I'm only looking for people that are looking for us. Okay. So so good coach, bad coach. In insurance agencies, who is the primary coach? Is it the leader? Is it the manager? Who is developing the talent typically in an insurance company?
Well, I mean, in our structure, for example, I the founder, I am responsible for our leadership. We have 4 directors. I coach the leadership nonstop. And those leadership silos, they're responsible for their team. So they're the coach of their team. So we have a director of digital integrations and marketing. He coaches and oversees the marketing and automations and digital integrations team. Our sales team is led by our sales director. We have team leads underneath him. Our operations team led by Emily. She handles all of our administrative staff. And then our director of business development handles our external partnerships in that team. So we have obviously layers built in, but that's the point, is we want everybody to be able to ascend into leadership roles in our company and develop those people. And then we have a lot of individual focus. I mean, what you just talked about is who's in the kitchen making sure the food's being cooked well.
Yeah.
I can't oversee all 25 people on our team. We need people overseeing each department. We need it going all the way down. We need to be listening to every single call, following every SOP and monitoring that from within. And that comes from coaches within each department in our operation. So to answer your question, I lead our leadership, and our leadership leads their specific departments.
And then I would ask the players here, because my daughter's 13 years old. She's in a cheerleader. She's got a coach. And I'm trying to coach her in how to be coachable. You know, I'm trying to coach her in how to be coachable. And I tell her a lot, like, you're not always going to agree with everything the coach says. Like, don't listen to the tone, listen to the words, right? Coaches say things, and, you know, you may win and the coach thinks you did a terrible job, and it is possible to win and still do a bad job of performing. So I'm trying to get her out of her emotions to say, look, show up and be coachable. Your confidence is not predicated by what another person thinks about you. Your confidence is predicated by what you think of you, right? But I'm trying to instill these things, and she'll be like, but Dad, you know, my coach said this and this. And I'm like, look, I get it, but your coach ain't perfect. They're going to get emotional. They're going to get mad. They're going to say things. Like learn to keep moving, keep practicing, keep being coachable. Don't get caught up in these drama traps where everybody gets talking and the parents talk. And I got no interest in that. Okay. I got zero interest. If you have a problem with your coach, schedule a meeting, go take a meeting with your coach and talk to her. You know what I'm saying? I'm not calling her. Your mom's not calling her. You're going to walk in there and talk to your coach and say, hey, let's get on the same page about this. And I'm trying to coach her at an early age. No different than if you're an employee and you got a problem, you say, hey, I want to sit down and talk to you about this. Right. So let's finish with something here, Chase, because a lot of things that we're coaching on, a lot of things that we're coaching people on in our coaching programs is how to stay in a forward posture, how to be consistent, how to make sales, how to follow up, how to deliver on what you promise. But probably 90% of it, Chase, is just all performance begins in the brain. And that's really what we spend a lot of our time focusing on, right or wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, I was telling our team these past couple of weeks, I remember when I was playing high school college football, I remember when I was playing on Saturdays, is that Friday night before the game, I would visualize myself making the play. I would visualize myself making a big sack, a strip fumble for a touchdown. And I really believe you've got to see that in the business world. I've got to see myself making the big sale. I've got to see myself executing. We've got to put those plans in place. And that's what it all comes down to is how you always say, confidence is the memory of success, right? Yeah. And that's what it all comes down to, is seeing it first.
Well, that's the business we're really in. That's the business you're in, both running the coaching company, the insurance coaching company where you're coaching people. And it's also the business you're in and running your downlines and your insurance agency is basically it's just a coaching organization that happens to sell insurance.
Right. It's a giant sports team that sells insurance.
It's really a personal development company that sells insurance. And when you think about it like that, if you want to get better, then you need to go to the right agency. You need to work with the right people. So as we wind down the year here, are there other things that a person could jump into the coaching program with you today if they wanted to? Yes.
Yeah. And that's what we developed. So we built an internal championship team that does millions of dollars in revenue. But a lot of people, they wanted to work with us without having to join our internal team, without having to be an employee. If I'm an agency owner, how do I duplicate what you've done? And I started hearing that left and right. So we put together a platform company that allows people to really enter our circle of influence, get our exact blueprint, roadmap, and really do something from a place of this is what works because we do it every single day, not theory. And people can join us and work with us 24/7, 365. And we have 12-month memberships that are really going to prove and expedite your success as an agency owner in the insurance space.
Yeah. Okay. Well, another good addition, man, of Coach to Coach. They can get the book on Amazon.
Yeah, bestseller on Amazon. That's really the blueprint in book format. And we've had hundreds of copies sold of that. And I just hear the same thing over and over again. I cannot believe you put all this into a book. I cannot believe you shared this much information in a book. I've never picked up a book and actually been able to go expedite my insurance agency through a book. So it's exciting.
Well, Chase is a practitioner. He's big into the blocking and tackling. He speaks a lot now on blocking and tackling of the business, building a dynasty, building an insurance agency. He's got an office here in the Greatness Factory. He's doing events that are coming up in the year and next year. So I'll be speaking at many of those events. So we want to get you in the room, man, and help you play at a much higher level. We've got a lot of demonstrated capacity of people who join the team who are playing at a much higher frequency. So if you're out there and you're looking for direction, or you got a team of people that you're looking to join forces with somebody, then I strongly encourage you, reach out to Chase, schedule a meeting. You're going to like what you hear. You're going to need that blocking and tackling, and you're going to leave your amateur desires behind, and you make a decision to go pro, folks.
Blocking and tackling a business. I like that.
That's right. Maybe that's a book coming up for you.
That's it.
All right, man. Another edition of Coach to Coach. Good to see you today, brother.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Make it a great day.